Yeah, so anyway, as long as the Federal Reserve System is in place, and as long as it is what it is, a cartel run by the banks, then of course they're going to be pushing inflation because that's their solution to making a profit. It's a business decision. And as long as the Congress is happy with that relationship and allows it to exist, it favors the government, too, because they're able to get access to unlimited amounts of money. We might notice today, for example, this war in the Middle East. Nobody even knows what those numbers mean when they find out that Congress just voted another $100 billion, or some ridiculous figure, to expand the war or just keep the war going at what it's going. And nobody says, well, where's that money going to come from? What they don't realize is, by the way, at the same time, they're giving people tax rebates. Now, wake up, everybody. What's going on here? You're expanding government spending at a huge rate. They're bailing out the banks at a huge rate. They're trying to put everybody sound again with their declining values in the home and their homes and their mortgages, and that's costing trillions of dollars, and yet they're giving taxpayers a rebate? Wake up. Where do you think that money's coming from to do all these things? Well, the answer is it's coming from inflation. And it's future inflation for the most part because it takes a little while for that to ripple through the economy. But the American people are paying for every bit of this in a fashion that they do not understand and cannot see and do not suspect even. So, another year down the line when a cup of coffee at Starbucks, instead of being $4, is $15 or something, they say, well, those dirty guys at Starbucks, what are they doing to me? No, it's not Starbucks. It's not the car manufacturers. It's not the food growers, the grocery stores, or any of that. It's the Federal Reserve System and the government in that unholy alliance just expanding the money supply so it becomes more and more and more worthless. That's as simple as it can be.
Yeah. And on top of it, to add more fuel to the fire, if you will, you have a population today majorly in debt. So many of us in America are in major debt. And it was even sadder than that. Most of us just keep spending money anyway and just get deeper and deeper and deeper and never, ever will ever see the day of light because of the inflation. And because the money keeps losing value, it's mathematically, like many say, impossible to see the light of day when we talk about debt. So, and that's another huge factor. Yeah, I think that's another huge factor because, we have to somehow try to come out of this, and it's not just one solution. There's so many issues and so many problems that we have to tackle it from different sides of the story. So your thoughts on that?
Well, that's right. And it's very interesting when you finally get hold of it. You look at it at first, you think, oh, that's a very complicated issue. I will never really understand that. But then all of a sudden, after you play with it a while, it's like solving one of those little ring puzzles. All of a sudden, you get it. Say, oh, my gosh, that was simple. Now I get it. You see, one of the other factors here is the fact that money is going out of existence right now at a very fast rate. Not only coming into existence through the Federal Reserve, but it's going out of existence because people are losing their homes. Bad loans are being written off. So money, every time a loan is written off, let's say you've got a loan out there you borrowed $20,000 on your credit card. Now, that money's in existence, and all of a sudden you go bankrupt and you can't pay that loan, and the bank has to write that off its books. That means $20,000 just disappeared from the whole economy. So while the Federal Reserve is pumping money into the economy like crazy to keep its expenditures going, to keep the war going, to bail out the banks and pay for the boondoggles and all of that, at the same time, people are getting rid of their debts. Either they're paying them off or they're going bankrupt and writing them off. And when those debts go out of existence and the price of homes starts going down and the price, various investments go down, that money is going out of existence. So you've got an interesting situation where there are two opposing forces. Inflation is always determined by the net balance of those two opposing forces. Is the money supply increasing or decreasing? So you've got these two opposing forces, and it's like pouring water into a bucket with a big hole in the bottom. The Federal Reserve is pouring money into the bucket, but the bad loans and the people losing their jobs and not being able to pay so much for products and industry having to lay off people and close down factories, that's the hole in the bottom of the bucket that's causing money to go out of existence. So one could make the argument that, well, in spite of all of the Federal Reserve shenanigans, we're going into a deflationary period, and prices are going to go down. And I've heard people argue that. And I wouldn't say that they're wrong, but fortunately you asked me in the beginning what my opinion was. And my opinion is that between the two opposing forces, the inflationary forces are going to win out. That's what I think.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question, because we are talking about inflation right now, and that's the increase in the money supply and the devaluation of the value of the money. But what about the deflation and the way that it worked in the Great Depression? Was the Federal Reserve instrumental in the Great Depression? Did they have an effect on it? And could you explain a little bit about that?
Yes, they did, and there was. I'm glad you brought that up because it emphasizes the issue I was making a moment ago. The Great Depression in the 30s was a result of the deflationary pressures that I just described. People were losing investments. They lost jobs. Companies were going out of business. People were losing their houses. Loans were being written off and so forth. So there was a contraction of the money supply, which causes, that's a deflationary cycle. But the huge difference between the Depression of the 30s and the economic situation we are now facing is that in the 30s, the Federal Reserve System did not have the ability to expand the money supply anywhere near to the extent that it can today. The ability to create money out of nothing was very limited because, remember, in the 30s, money was backed by gold. Mm-hmm. You couldn't just create it out of nothing. You had to have the gold, brother, or you couldn't create it and lend it.
Yeah, today they keep track too as well of how much money was in this current system, so how much it was worse. Now they've actually gotten rid of the indicator on the dollar bills that tell how much money is in circulation. Can you tell me why they did that? Why did they get rid of that?
You mean why they got rid of the amount that was behind the dollar?
Yeah, the M3, I think it's called, right?
Well, they used to call them silver certificates and gold certificates, if I'm understanding your question right.
I'm talking about the M3 money supply that shows
the M3 money supply. Yes, okay. Well, that's entirely different.
Actually, I'm sorry, Griffin. We're running up on a break here, and
okay. All right.
Yeah, hold that thought, and we'll get back to it when we get back. You are listening to the Animal Farm on the We the People Radio Network. Stay tuned.
You've only got a couple of hours left. If you're going to pull a party out of your ass, you might want to stand up.